Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the April 14th Lebanon City Council meeting. Our first order of business will be the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll continue with the roll call members. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Sure. Mike Kincaid.
Present.
Keith Campbell.
Here.
Sandra Jasonowski.
Here.
Dick Robertson.
Here.
John Copeland.
Here.
Sierra Messenger.
Present.
Rob Hawkins.
Here.
Thank you.
And then we did have minutes here. We got quite a few. We have them for 12/9, our special meeting on 12/23, 1/13, 1/27, 2/10, 2/24, 3/10, and 3/24. So any questions on those? I'm sure she did a phenomenal job putting them together. Motion to approve minutes as
I'll make a motion to approve minutes.
motion approved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Rob. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those are approved. All right, to begin tonight, we have a presentation concerning our 2025 TIF annual report. We have Emma Adlam from Baker Tilly. Emma?
Good evening, everyone. My name's Emma Adlam. I'm with Baker Tilly, and this is a short presentation that is a relatively recent state requirement. The Redevelopment Commission has a lot of reporting that they have to do, following statute each year, and April 15th is kind of the first big thing that the Redevelopment Commission needs to report, and it's a report on last year's activities. So TIF areas created, who was on the Redevelopment Commission, your fund balances, and as part of the requirement, it now needs to be presented before council at a public meeting. So all of the information, it's pretty prescriptive. So we're covering all of the sections that's required in the state statute. So the first piece, you can see these are the members of the Redevelopment Commission, and the Redevelopment Commission did not have any paid employees in 2024. There are several TIF areas outstanding. They're industrial park, and then you can see all the expansion areas, Ken's Foods, DA Lubricant, and then you have several single-site developer TIF areas. Building 11 is Scott Barrett. FiberNet, State Road 32 is the GDI building. And then you have Gateway Marketplace, Patterson Street, New Cold, and then down at the very bottom, you created a new TIF area last year, New Cold Phase 3 allocation area. And then the other new area from last year is the Project Leap Phase 1 area. So the last two are the two new ones that was created last year. This slide shows the total revenues and expenditures for each TIF area, and it's not just the taxes received, it's also bond interest and bond proceeds. So this shows both the funds Tanya controls and also the trustee held bank accounts. So the one that looks a little different is the Fieldhouse area. You issued bonds last year, the 2024 Infrastructure Phase 2 bond issue. So that's why the revenues and expenditures are pretty high for the Fieldhouse area. It's the bond proceeds coming in and then spending out on the Infrastructure Phase 1, Infrastructure Phase 2, and then finishing out the Fieldhouse project. The next section, it's required to break out the Redevelopment Commission expenditures in the SBOA expenditure category. And so this is not a single TIF area. This is lumping all of your TIF areas together. So you can see your big payments are principal and interest on bonds, construction expenses. I think, again, that's expending on the public infrastructure projects, professional services, some utility payments. The section below, there were 4 grant payments made last year. Then the last section on the slide is that you did not distribute TIF to any other taxing units. The report requires that you have a list of all of your individual fund balances. So we've uploaded that into Gateway. Tanya has also a copy, but you didn't need to see several slides of all of your funds. But we have that information for you if you would like to see it. The slide show your debt payments. So you have several bonds outstanding in your industrial park, and you can see from furthest right has a maturity date, then principal and interest paid in 24, and then at the end of 24, the total principal and interest still outstanding. So you have your industrial park bond issues, Building 11, FiberNet, State Road 32 or GDI, your Gateway Marketplace bond issue. Then downtown, we connect the Forza project to downtown because it's within your downtown allocation area. 3 bonds outstanding connected to the Fieldhouse allocation area. New Cold, you have phase 1 and phase 2. And then Patterson Street. So Patterson Street, you haven't yet paid, had to make a debt payment yet because we've aligned it for when you actually start receiving TIF revenues. And then you haven't made any debt payments in 24 for your phase 2 public infrastructure bonds. Then the last piece is that you do have a housing TIF area. Your Waterford TIF area is in existence, but no houses have been completed. So we can't put the average sales price of the homes. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have on your 24 activities.
Any questions for Emma from the council? I know Keith and Dick sat through that once before, but if you guys had any new questions since then, but any questions for Emma at this time? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Emma. Appreciate your time. All right, we'll move on to old business then. First item up here is Ordinance 2025-08. This is establishing a wastewater service rate district or district rate for the LEAP district, utility district, and this is on second reading. Jeff Jacob.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, Council. My name is Jeff Jacob. I'm here to talk and introduce to you for the public hearing portion of Ordinance 2025-08, your second reading. I'm here tonight with Ed Baskell and Scott Miller from Baker Tilly. As you recall from last time we spoke, the ordinance before you establishes a wastewater rate and district for the LEAP area only. This corresponds with what we had done with water. It's the same area. This ordinance substantially mirrors the existing civil wastewater district ordinance, save for a couple of key areas. One, the availability fee in the civil rate district is $4,800. Here, the rate before you for availability fees is $5,400. The monthly base rate in the civil rate district is a little over $5. It's $5.64, and here before you tonight is $6.50 as a monthly metered base rate. One of the things that each time I'm in front of you when we're taking action like this, that I want to make sure that we're clear, is that this ordinance does not have any impact on the civil rate district. This is exclusively an action affecting the LEAP district and establishing what that area is, defining it as set out in the ordinance, and then what those rules are from a rate standpoint. And that is detailed in the ordinance and the maps in front of you. This would include future annexations where you'll be required to, applicants would be required to designate which district you're designating, whether that's LEAP or civil rate district. Yes, sir.
Would you, for those that are watching, just kind of define what the civil district is?
Yeah, the civil district is anything that's not LEAP in essence, and I'm happy to show a map, but it's really what we're doing. The
dark blue would be civil, and then the light blue is LEAP.
all of LEAP, and then the dark blue is what we call the civil district, and that is the non-LEAP portion of Lebanon.
Well, it doesn't, the rate doesn't affect anyone who is in the civil district, the current
That's-
Lebanon residents.
That's correct.
Okay.
So this does come to you with a unanimous recommendation from the utility board, which I believe a few meetings ago, they passed a resolution recommending this ordinance. Pending any questions for me, I pass it over to Scott Miller to discuss a little bit more about how we arrived at the rate.
Any questions for Jeff from council?
No, sir.
Okay, Scott?
Good evening, Scott Miller with Baker Tilly. We went over this the last time, but I'll just give a quick summary of the rates. The process is very similar to what we do with your civil district rates when we calculate those. First off, we've got projects that need to be funded, and as I mentioned the last time, and as you undoubtedly saw on your agenda, we've got the bond ordinances for this work later on in this meeting. But for phase 1 and phase 2 of the LEAP wastewater projects, we've got estimates of about 161.8 million of projects to do for phase 1, and then almost 0.4 million for phase 2. Those will be funded, hopefully, with the ordinances that you'll approve later on through the Indiana Finance Authority. This is a whole lot of numbers, but it's just kind of shows you the combined debt service schedule. It'll be about $17.9 million per year that go into the rates at LEAP. So we've got debt service. We also have operations that will take place out at LEAP for phase 1. And these are provided by the consulting engineers based on the work that needs to be done, but estimates for phase 1 operations and replacements, and then phase 2 operations and replacements. And once we've analyzed all of that, we get to the $6.50 rate that Jeff mentioned is in the ordinance. You'll notice here up at the top, we've got the rate split into two pieces, a capital component of the rate and then the operation, maintenance, and replacement component. You'll see there at the top about $30 in the initial year and then about $24 in the next several years for annual debt service. And that's then reduced by the discount for IDD revenues that will be also pledged to the repayment of this debt and will be coming in from the state as the project develops out there. So that reduces our debt service rate. We add in our operational rate and end up at the $6.50. So like I said, very similar process in terms of how we calculate the rates and what goes into that. And with that, Jeff mentioned also the availability fee, same process there, looking at the cost of the capacity improvements and determining what that cost is on an EDU basis and coming up with that $5,400. So happy to answer any questions that you might have about the rate calculations. And then obviously we'll be back later to talk financing as well.
So Scott, just to clarify too for me. So when this is all done, these will be Lebanon utility assets, correct?
That is correct.
So fair to say that since the IDD revenues, since you're buying the rate down from close to 30 some dollars to $6 or $6.50, whatever it was, that's essentially the state subsidizing that rate down to make it more affordable in the market.
Correct.
So if Lebanon was trying to build these things ourselves, right, we'd have to charge a $30 rate. So essentially that's money the state's putting into our system that we're recouping from that.
That is correct.
Just want to make sure I was understanding that that's more money coming to help our local system. So,
Yep. Yes, it is.
questions for Scott from the council?
Well, just to clarify a little bit, make sure everybody at home understands that it's development paying for development.
That's right. And we'll talk about this a little bit later as we get into the financing piece, because you have the two bond ordinances before you, but we're trying to set this up so that LEAP pays for LEAP and civil is set aside. And that's why Jeff talked about the two different rate districts and trying to do everything that we can to keep that separation and make sure that those dollars stay where they are and the costs as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions at this time for council? Okay, we'll have Rob read it, and then we do have a public hearing as well.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Ordinance 2025-08 is again an ordinance establishing a wastewater service rate district and rates and charges for the use and services provided by the wastewater works utility to the LEAP district. This is several pages. I know we went through it in a lot more detail, so I'll just hit the highlights. Here, again, the LEAP district is defined in Exhibits A and B. The city previously established, as Mr. Jacob indicated, the wastewater rate district under Lebanon Ordinance 2022-23, which is the civil wastewater district. Based upon a Baker-Tilly report, the Utility Board adopted Resolution 2025-02, recommending the creation of a new wastewater rate district for the LEAP district, and that's defined as the LEAP wastewater district. So there's several, again, provisions in here. This council finds as follows: that a second wastewater rate district is hereby established, known as the LEAP wastewater district. Again, the boundaries are depicted in Exhibits A and B. The existing wastewater rate governed by Ordinance 2022-23 shall be known as the civil wastewater district and generally includes all current connections to the wastewater work system and all property currently within the corporate limits not set out in Exhibits A and B. The LEAP wastewater district shall also be governed by the City of Lebanon, utilities, general conditions, and other applicable regulations, statutes, and ordinances. All future annexations of property into the corporate limits of the City of Lebanon shall designate which wastewater rate district shall apply. Again, there's several pages in here that go through the rates. I don't think we need to go through them again unless you have any questions. I'm happy to do so.
Thank you, Rob. This time, I'll open the public hearing on Ordinance 2025-08. If you need public comment, please come forward. State your name for the record and keep comments at 3 minutes if possible. Seeing no sudden movement, I will close the public hearing on Ordinance 2025-08. Further discussion, comments from council?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion approved. I will make sure there's no other comments. Everybody good? All right, is there a second? Second from Dick. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, that is approved. Thank you, council. We didn't realize, I overlooked my agenda. We have a food and beverage request. So do I have consent from the council to take the agenda out of order?
Yes, sir.
Consent. All right, we'll move on to new business item A, which is a food and beverage request from Black Box Theater. Is Jennifer here? Sorry, you had to learn a bit about wastewater, but good for the kids, I guess.
They're going to have strong opinions next year. Hi, my name is Jennifer Miller. I'm the treasurer with Black Box Theater Company of their board of directors. We recently met with the Lebanon Food and Tax Commission to request some assistance in helping to sponsor our spring show, which is Finding Nemo Jr. For those of you who aren't familiar with Black Box Theater Company, it's a local youth theater group that we have over 400 or 500 kids that go through there every year. We have all different kinds of programs, plays, musicals. We have tons of summer camps available, some where they even write their own play. We do a daycare. We do a lot of set design, LARP, which is live action role play, as well as a bozo group. What we're asking for is assistance in helping with the printing costs with our playbills for our large show, which I said is Finding Nemo Jr. I have a couple of the cast members here with me as well, and I think they want to say a little something about what Black Box means to them. Who wants to go first? All right. This is Eleanor Miller. She will be playing Peach in a couple of the shows in Finding Nemo Jr.
It's made me come out of my comfort zone.
All right, and then we have also Squirt joining us, who is one of the other featured cast of Finding Nemo Jr.
Hi, I'm Pedestrian, and I'm here. I've taken got a camera. I am so grateful for life because I'm able to express my
Well, thank you.
And then just last but not least, so a lot of people think of Black Box, they think of some of our younger kids. Our spring show is kindergarten through eighth graders, but we also have a lot of opportunities for high schoolers. Now, Quinn, what is it, Patty Wonkus? Caddy Wampus. She mentioned a little bit about our Bozos program. So we're going to give you a little snippet of some of the fun things that you can expect with the Bozos. We also do a large circus spectacular every September at the fairgrounds. So put it on your calendars. Take it away, Corbin.
No pressure. We are live TV, so dozens watching.
I was gonna say, usually those are on fire, but we don't want to scare anybody. But that's a little bit of our, what we do. And so thank you so much for your consideration and your partnership. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and we did meet with Jennifer, and we all three unanimously agreed that it was definitely a worthwhile cause. They have, like she said, 130 kids going through on the Finding Nemo. And in total, somewhere here she has open yearly classes for all 4 seasons. They do shows on all 4 seasons. And just like she said, the circus event, I thought that was pretty awesome to have something like that going as well for these kids. And they've gotten into daycare now, 2 to 3 days a week. They do that as well. They have the money that they are asking for is going to be used for their printing on the playbills for this, and it takes quite a bit there. So right now they have 15 to 20 sponsors, but they're still in need. Those sponsors are anywhere from $250 each to $5,000. So they still need it. And the camp, the camp costs, they have a summer camp for the kids. So we agreed, and I make a motion that we approve $1,500 for the Black Box Theater from our food and beverage fund, not the food and tax,
Yep.
food and beverage.
Food and beverage. All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A second from Rob. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, that is opposed, and good luck with the show. What are the dates for Finding Nemo Junior? Yep. June 4th for the 8th, those watching at home. All right, thank you so much. All right, return to regular business consent. Okay, go back to old business then. This next item up here is Ordinance 2025-09. This is the Spring Creek Plan Unit Development Amendment. This is also on second reading. Ben.
I didn't have any plans to juggle, so unfortunately, I'm just going to have to give a presentation.
I've seen you at our budget meetings. What are you talking about?
I could give it a shot, but this was introduced at the last council meeting, so I'll just give a brief recap for you. The Spring Creek Plan Unit Development was approved a couple years ago and is gearing up for construction this year. And one of the things that they've noticed in the market is there's a softening in the market for duplex product. And this development included both single-family detached duplexes and townhomes. And so with the recognition of some softening in that duplex market and actually strengthening the market for detached product, they wanted to make some modifications to the plan unit development ordinance to allow for change from those duplexes to single family detached product. And so we worked with them to make some modification amendments to their plan unit development ordinance. And that does have to go back through the process of review by the Plan Commission and then adopted via ordinance by the council. So this did go before the Plan Commission and comes to you with a unanimous recommendation, positive recommendation. This was introduced last time, and then this is the second reading today and potential adoption. So just a quick recap, the site is the northwest corner here of State Road 39 and 300 North. That you see highlighted here in the yellow. This is the overall concept plan for the development. Where the changes are is with the yellow lots in the center. Those are going from duplexes to single family detached product. This is just a little recap of the changes. You can see here that there were 130 units as part of the duplex part of the development. Going from that to single family detached, you can see the modification of there's 118 lots. The lot areas are adjusting from 3,500 square feet per unit to 4,500 square feet for the detached. And really the only other significant change in the ordinance is obviously when you have a duplex on one side, the house is attached. So there's a zero foot setback on that side. And they've obviously modified it so there'd be a 5 foot setback on either side of that home. Everything else is staying the same in the ordinance. The only other thing we did was to, I would say, modernize some of the other sections of the ordinance so that they reference our new unified development ordinance that had been adopted since this was previously adopted in 2023. So there's just some other places where we changed references so that they match with the new UDO. The other thing with these being smaller lots and narrower homes, we did also look at some additional architectural treatments to the homes. And so these are some elevations of these homes. One of the major things that you'll notice right away is rather than having a single garage door, it's been split into two garage doors to break up that garage facade. There's also materials and color requirements that you see here, multiple materials, masonry, and 2 different siding styles. And then there were some requirements on the front doors to include windows within the front doors. So again, just trying to make sure that we have appropriate architecture requirements on these that would be narrower lot homes. So here's just some examples of what some of those elevations may look like based on those architectural requirements. With that, that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And if there's anything that I can't answer, there's also a rep from Gradison Development here as well.
Thank you, Ben. Any questions for Ben from the council this time? Any public comment concerning ordinance 2025-09? Okay. Seeing none, entertain further discussion or motion from council. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second. Second from John. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Take opposed. All right. That ordinance passes unanimous passes 6-1. Thank you, council. All right. Next up will be ordinance 2025-10. This is concerning establishing pedestrian alleyways downtown. This is on second reading. Kevin.
Thank you very much. We're here on second reading, so I'll provide you with a little bit of overview. I want to clarify, I guess, the intent and the context of this ordinance. Really, the purpose of this ordinance is to enhance our downtown pedestrian environment, to improve quality of place, to protect significant public as well as private investments that have been made in the square, all in an effort that we've done concertedly over the last few years to revitalize the square. I want to reiterate that this goes back to really our downtown vision and planning efforts that produced our downtown action plan in 2016. I want to also remind everyone that this is only applicable to 3 alleys in question. This is the alleys that enter the square on the north side, the south side, and the east side. So that's the alley-oop area, the area between the Chop House and Lane and Brown that was developed as part of the original project, and then the eastern alley off of Meridian Street as well. So again, just a couple steps we've been through. I mentioned the downtown action plan in 2016 that included the downtown project that started in 2018 and went through 2019. That effectively closed off all the alleys to through vehicular traffic at that time. Included the activation and improvements to the South Alley. And then in 23 and then completed in 24, we had the alley-oop project, really spearheaded by the Heart of Lebanon, but also really a community-wide project as they raised over $100,000 to build that project. And they are also now planning improvements for the East Alley that went through HPC approvals in early 2024. So again, I want to emphasize this is about protecting and guiding our quality of place for our downtown. The ordinance seeks to limit or restrict some of the traditional alley functions, but it doesn't seek to eliminate them. What it does say is that if you want to use the alley for some of those traditional uses, like say storage of refuse, that you have to come to the Board of Works and coordinate that approval through the Board of Works. But again, if those concessions are made, we want to ensure, the ordinance ensures that the pedestrian experience and the downtown aesthetics are protected. And this goes back to looking at some of the existing codes we have in place. Code 7205 that essentially states what alleys are there for. They're basically there as public rights of way, but do not allow any parking or loading and unloading activities in the alleys, but do allow for the storage of trash and other materials to be staged in the alley. And then 7203 goes on to state that loading and unloading, if it's happening in an alley, has to be short in duration, no longer than 10 minutes. So again, all those prior codes kind of treated all alleys with a broad brush. So all this we're trying to do on these 3 alleys is really sort of restrict those to that pedestrian experience. I would also point out that, other code references that are applicable here is that, loading and unloading and distribution activities, distribution activity related businesses are not permitted in the downtown business district as well. So before we get into reading in the ordinance, I just will reiterate that this is to protect the investment, that focus on quality of place, and the pedestrian safety and experience of our downtown. With that, I'll turn ordinance 2025-10 back over to you.
Kevin, any questions for Kevin at this time from the council?
Yeah, I have a question, sir.
Good, Rob.
And I apologize for jumping in on too soon. And again, the last time we read this, shame on me for not paying close enough attention or reading thoroughly enough. By passing this ordinance, I give up all my voting rights for anything here in these alleyways. Everything goes to the Board of Works, correct?
Well, what I would say is that you already have no authority over our public rights of way. Public rights of way under state statute defer to a Board of Public Works and Safety. So this body is really here, this is our legislative branch, is here to create laws, here to pass budgets. But the enforcement of those laws and budgets, including what you can do in public rights of way, fall to the Board of Public Works and Safety. So that is already where closures of parking spaces, closures of streets, use of streets, those things already fall in there. So I would say this doesn't take away anything from you that you don't have. There is a provision in here that basically states that that you are delegating the Board of Public Works and Safety to issue any permits or licenses that are needed for use of these alleys. They already have that authority, but I think this is just expressly stating it, that is not an administrative function that has to come before a Board of Public Works and Safety for any approval for that public use.
This is already an alley that's shut down, correct? So there is no vehicular
Well,
traffic.
it's blocked by a large planter on Meridian Street, so you can't really drive through the alley at this time.
Basically, what we're discussing here is closing the alley so that we basically have nobody in the alley other than pedestrians.
What really came about is realizing that what our codes would allow is for people to store trash in alleys. And And that's fine in a lot of alleys. But in these alleys that we really want to create that positive pedestrian experience, we don't necessarily want them used for the traditional alley uses, which would be for the storage of trash until it's ready for pickup, So this would prohibit without oversight any kind of dumpster storage or trash can storage or recycling storage within the alleys.
Okay, so
And then would also
are the
restrict vehicular.
dumpsters there right now?
We have dumpsters in that eastern alley that showed up relatively recently. I know when I was there this summer when the alley activation project started, there wasn't anything there, but I know a couple have shown up. The Board of Works has granted approval for use of that alley for the renovations on the ballet school building. So they're going through a major renovation, and approvals for that temporary use have been granted.
And where are you going to move those dumpsters?
They'll be able to stay. Again, they got that approval to keep them there while they're doing that renovation.
Oh, he's not talking about those dumpsters. He's talking about the two dumpsters that are straight down on the left. The dumpsters are there. And I think they've been there for a long time, right?
Yeah,
There were dumpsters there prior when the property was owned by a different entity, and those were used for residential trash for the residents above. I don't know when they showed up. I know when I met out there last June to talk with the adjacent landowner, Mr. Sampson, about drainage concerns, there wasn't any dumpsters there. I don't know if they stored them in other areas. I really couldn't speak to that, but they're brand new dumpsters if you've seen them.
They're towards the rear of the alley. They're not up front. They're towards the
Back,
rear.
near the back corner
on
of the
left
building.
side,
Yes,
past those meters on the back side there.
correct.
I did speak with the owners there, and I walked around and I was looking at the places where we could potentially put the dumpsters, and it didn't look like there was a lot of feasible options. One would be in front of like the water meters. One would block another area for when trucks come in and out there. Like Clues has deliveries that go back there as well. So I didn't see any other option besides the alley there. I don't know where they would put their dumpsters.
I don't want to speak.
Question I had asked last time
well, I
when we read the ordinance about the dumpsters and where it would affect. And we were told that the dumpsters wouldn't have an effect. So I'm kind of confused on that.
they were there. They were somewhere else before.
But they were in front of
Yeah,
the
they've
water
always been-
meters
they've always
or
been
the
behind
meters,
the
and they were
building.
told that they had to move them by the electric company.
Yes, that's correct.
Hold on, just. Anyway, okay, so
Sorry, I just don't see another option for the dumpsters to be moved now. And maybe Abby can speak to that in a minute when we open to public comment. But that's why I specifically asked about that last meeting, and I feel like that kind of got brushed off to the side. So I just don't want that to become a big issue.
No, I understand. I don't know where the dumpsters were stored prior to recently. Yeah, so, and then again, the ordinance does provide the provision to allow for those licenses for storage of dumpsters under certain circumstances, certain circumstances that the Board of Works could place upon them, perhaps screening or other requirements. But there is those provisions in this ordinance that would allow that.
It's hard to say that because we weren't, that puts it off and we're not the ones making the decision on those types of things.
And
So that makes it hard.
I think to your point, to Mr. Hawkins's point, that's what's in there now, and that's in there based off of the purviews that fall to the Board of Public Works and Safety today. I don't know if there's any interest in a revision to the ordinance before it would be approved. That's up to you guys if that's something you would like to consider. So far, no, I've seen questions about this topic, but I've not seen any proposed revisions from any of the council members.
So then I'm going to bring up a subject here. When I went there also and spoke with the owners, And this is a detriment to them because they load and unload on the side. But rather than make a complaint about it, they did come up with a resolution, and that was to go ahead and do the pedestrian back to the meters there, the gas meters there, so that you've got that whole front part, and they could still load and unload in the back part of that alley, and they'll carry them around up to the door, their side door where they load and unload at. And that would
Are we
keep-
talking about loading? We're talking about dumpsters. I'm confused.
Well, I brought this up because we were leaving the dumpsters, so I wanted
Yeah.
to bring this up.
I guess the loading issue, the loading issue isn't allowed today. Unless you can unload and load something in 10 minutes. It's meant for deliveries. You pick up deliveries, FedEx trucks, things of that nature. And there's a lot of deliveries downtown, as you can imagine.
A lot of delivery trucks downtown that take longer than 10 minutes to unload.
And I wouldn't argue that. I don't know where we're at in terms of enforcement of those issues. But, I think
And when I was down there, they
whatever the
blocked
nature of the
alleys.
unloading, it's relatively short term as opposed to days.
But I'm just, in talking with them, they were completely agreeable about loading and unloading within 10 minutes. And so I don't see an issue there, other than if we compromise and do to the gas meters, and then the city has the pedestrian only up there, with the ballet school putting that door there, it closes off, so there's no vehicles up where they're at. And then on behind that, they could still pull in, load and unload, because that was their major issue, to be able to load and unload to their door. And we've got to take into consideration both businesses on each side of that alley, not just one of them, but both. And then what we want for the city too. And I think that compromise would be good.
Any further questions for Kevin at this time?
Well, I would just, I think it's fair to make an attempt to accommodate both businesses. Ballet school gets the door. That gives them access, to the alley and so forth. Chop House gets the alley over there, and then Alley Oop gets that alley. So I think these two businesses should be able to share that alley also.
I would agree. That's what we've been trying to foster, is creative, activated pedestrian uses of the alley. And yeah, we don't want to discourage that. I've had conversations with Casey Sampson about his visions for activating that alley. And those visions didn't include dumpster storage or loading zones. They included an expansion of the craft room out into the alley, which I think is an excellent opportunity that we should consider. We love the idea of the entrance to the ballet school, and we think that's a great opportunity. So all these things are something we want to celebrate and explore and encourage. I'm just not sure how we reconcile that with the storage of trash and the movement of heavy vehicles loading and unloading.
That's two issues. One of them is the unloading and loading, which I owned that building at 111 North Meridian for 13 years.
Yeah.
And used to unload and load stuff all the time. And if there's an issue with somebody staying there a day or something like that, of course, you just give them a ticket or something. But I think they should be able to, and even the ballet school can use it to unload stuff for demonstrations and things like that. I think a vehicle should be able to get at least up to the gas meter so they can perform what they want. Now, the trash dumpsters, I'm not sure about that. I mean, if it's too ugly or something like that, that's another question. I'm talking about just the access component of the alley. Those dumpsters used to be around the back of the building.
Yeah.
And
It's kind of the point, yeah.
yeah, but I think the major issue is the access to the alley. And, that's my comment.
I agree. And for a number of years, all the loading and unloading access has been to the backs of the building. So again, and we've had these conversations about the vision of the alley, dating back to 2016. So We're just trying to protect that vision and that investment with this ordinance. Without this ordinance, I don't want to draw extremes, but could someone, if a restaurant moves into the Lacey Bog space, can they store dumpsters in the alley-oop project?
No.
If the chop house
they
decides they
could.
need more dumpster space, can they move their trash, their dumpster into the,
Do you have a size limit on dumpsters?
we don't as a matter of ordinance, and it's not written into this.
Maybe we should consider that. The two that I saw in the alley were not extremely
There are
large.
ordinances, I think, and Ben could probably speak to this. There are ordinances related to screening and visibility from public view sheds and public rights of way. And then there are ordinances related to what is a proper screen, but I don't believe there are ordinances related to the size of a container.
Yeah, it looked like with those two dumpsters there, they could still get a vehicle in to load and unload right there. It wasn't over out into the middle of it or anything. And they were, when I was there, now I can't speak for every day, but they were clean. It didn't have a bunch of mess around it or anything like that.
Do we have a current plan for anything to go in there?
The Heart of Lebanon had proposed a temporary art installation, a mural, a pavement mural in there. We have renderings that were in the original downtown action plan for that alley. In fact, I think the first alley that was envisioned to be done was that alley, because it would have been adjacent to the event space on Meridian Street. But as we went through that planning process, I think it was decided to do that alley on the south side because of the activation potential from adjacent businesses that could have utilized that. At that time, that was People's Brewing Company before it was the Chop House. And so we like the idea of a outdoor dining space that would create.
The renderings that you were talking about on the east alley,
Mhm.
those were only going to go back to the meters, right?
No, the rendering was the entire alley with catenary lighting, brick pavers, basically similar to the alley on the south side. That project was just from conceptual rendering to actual construction plans. It was moved over to the south side.
Would it be unplausible to activate the alley, but still that back part let somebody back in and unload and unload? I mean, the alley could be activated up to a certain point. It can still look really nice and still have a little bit of access for them to load and unload in the very back. I just know our businesses and downtown, we've over the years had a hard time keeping businesses in our downtown. And this specific business that it affects has been there for 13 years. And I just want to make sure we're good stewards from the city to be partners with them and try to make something work if something is going to be really detrimental to a business. So I mean, I'm just trying to think of a compromise that could be from the city side and the business side, because I mean, I don't want to lose any businesses downtown. I mean, I feel like it's hard to fill those spaces, and I feel like they've done a really good job putting time and money into those buildings and making them look nice. And I just think, in my opinion, and this is not the council's view, but my opinion, I think we should work together.
And I agree. I agree with that 100%. And that particular business, Sampson's, in looking online, they're advertised on Life in Indy by Rob Kern. I mean, he mentions that business specifically in 2 different locations on his site. So I think we should compromise with them. And I think we should redo the ordinance to that effect so that everybody, you've got the pedestrian activated in the front and they can load and unload in the back, and talk to them, make sure that, they understand it's a 10-minute load and unload like any other alley. Just like you said that Cowan's have cars coming through, they're not there more than 10 minutes, but they're still in the alley. That's a pedestrian alley. So,
Well,
but if we,
Cowan's isn't, right? Because it's not designated as that in the ordinance, though.
Yeah, Cowan's was specific, is not in this ordinance, and in the downtown action plan, it was described as a vehicular access alley, and that was because we knew there was an existing drive-through window. Thank you.
I'm just saying that if we compromise with them, then everybody's happy. It's not making it super easy for them, but they can still access. they're not asking to be able to load right up by their door like they used to. They're they're willing to compromise. And I think we should too, and respect the businesses that we're trying to keep in the town, as well as beautify the area.
Are you stating that the ordinance should be, just to try to collect notes here, or the ordinance should be revised specifically giving exclusive use of that alley to the Sampson companies, or are you, because I mean, it's an alley, if we're stating that, then,
Well, the ballet
and
company's there
eliminating
also.
those abilities or creating those abilities, that wouldn't necessarily stop anyone from parking and unloading and loading there.
People might, I mean, there's repair people might need to get in somewhere close to the square and need somewhere to park. There could be animal control. There could be
Yeah.
a plethora
It's
of reasons.
a difficult alley to even get to
Right.
because you can't back into it
I
from the
don't
alley.
foresee a lot of people wanting to use it. It only has one way in. So, I mean, it would be not used by a ton of people, I wouldn't think. I mean, yes, there will be people using it at some points, but I don't see it being heavily trafficked by vehicles.
No.
That's why I was saying we could still do partially activate it, because I don't see heavy traffic going down there.
We'll have public testimony. So are there more questions for Kevin? Just want to make sure that we got those answered. And I'll have Rob of you read it quickly and we'll do public testimony. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Ordinance 2025-10, again, is an ordinance of the city designated pedestrian walkways in the city of Lebanon. This council recognizes the importance of promoting pedestrian-friendly spaces within the community and improving access for all residents. The city has identified certain alleyways within the downtown area as suitable for conversion into pedestrian walkways, which will enhance local pedestrian experience and support economic vitality of the area. The pedestrian alleyways, as of the effective date of this ordinance, Chapter 78, shall be added in accordance with Exhibit A, which Kevin just went through. The remaining portions of the city code of the ordinances are not affected by this ordinance and shall remain in full force and effect, and any prior ordinances that are inconsistent with any provisions of this ordinance are hereby rescinded.
Okay. Thank you, Rob. If there's any public comment on ordinance 25-10, please come forward.
Evening, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Abby Sampson. My husband and I own both 117 and 119 North Meridian Street, and are heavily invested in what happens with the alley, that east alley. So I know we've had a lot of discussion about some things. I did prepare something, and then I'm happy to address some of those specific points that were brought up, if you don't mind. My husband Casey and I have lived in Lebanon our entire lives, and we decided we wanted to raise our family and start our business here. We started by renting out one suite of 119 North Meridian from EMJ Properties. Over the next 12 years, we grew to piece by piece to rent the entire building. We eventually spilled over into 117 next door. In May of 22, we purchased both 119 and 117, where we house the craft room. Today, we have 14 full-time employees, tenants, our home, and a business that is a leader in early American community, specializing in the American Revolution, all operating within these two buildings. The nature of our business requires multiple deliveries and mail pickups each day, most of which come through the north-south alley behind our building. Being in a downtown building means we have neighbors to consider, who also require daily deliveries and sometimes block their end of the alley for loading and unloading. And that's just part of working together in tight quarters as we are all utilizing these shared spaces. We are honored to be invited to travel to some of the nation's most historic places, setting up our store, consulting on historical accuracy, and educating others on the 18th century. This requires us to load and unload our trailer, a process that can take several hours to tailor what we need to each location. Throughout the 12 years we've been here and grown our business, we have had to use the side alley, or we have had use rather, of the side alley adjacent to our building and the ballet school for two things: dumpsters for the businesses and tenants, and loading and unloading. The trash services for these buildings has been in that alley long before we moved in. Those of you who remember Gary Katona, and before him, his mother-in-law Libby, they actually have kept dumpsters in that alley for the entire block. When we were renters, we shared with the tenants above us, as well as the butcher shop on the corner when they owned that building as well. They all brought their trash to that specific alley, which made it a little difficult sometimes when it was shared to those two dumpsters. Moreover, this historic building was designed with a cut for a large loading door that opens onto that alley, supporting manufacturing and retail activities in the adjacent building since the city was platted. This is exactly how we continue to utilize the space within the bounds of the city codes to this day. Being able to back our 26-foot trailer down the alley, we are able to unload, load, and reset without blocking Meridian Street or the north-south alley, which would create a dangerous traffic hazard and disrupt parking, deliveries, trash, and mail services to our neighbors as well. Utilizing the alley as we have for the last 12 years doesn't negatively impact anyone. Additionally, the only access to our basement is in that alley, and it is crucial for swapping out products, storing materials, and moving equipment vital for our business. Recently, the alley where our basement access and trash are was closed from March to August without warning. While we understand that the ballet school is undergoing necessary repairs, much like this ordinance, we were never notified, despite being the only other affected party. We have worked directly with the contractor to ensure my staff can continue to do their jobs and access this basement safely, but no communication was made even after that closure was approved. Additionally, a new door was cut into the ballet building to become their primary entrance. My 9-year-old daughter attends classes there 4 nights a week. Of course, we want this to be a safe place for her and her classmates. But let's remember, the alley is not a throughway as it sits now, and it is already blocked by a concrete planter in the front of the buildings. We would like to propose a compromise. The alley has center point gas meters halfway down. If the front half of the alley encompassing the ballet entrance and our basement door were designated as a pedestrian alley, blocked with bollards like those used downtown, we could still use the back half of the alley for our business needs. This would keep the space safe for pedestrians while still allowing us to conduct business without negatively affecting any other downtown commerce. There is another precedent worth noting. Why was the alley next to the Chop House designated for outdoor seating? To promote commerce, it positively impacts the Chop House, allowing them to have control over outdoor seating. Why was the Cowan's Drugstore Alley never closed? Because closing it would significantly hurt their business as they've utilized it to serve the community for many years. Clusbrews was granted private use and control of public sidewalk to add outdoor seating to their floor plan. We strongly support all of these decisions that have helped our neighbors and fellow small businesses succeed. I believe my business has also invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in downtown over the last decade. And I think it deserves the same consideration that was given to the others. Closing the adjacent alley would hurt my business and the ability to operate as all occupants in that building have since its construction. The ripple effect would then affect the entire block. This proposal is a compromise, one that acknowledges and respects the evolving needs of our downtown while maintaining essential access for our longstanding businesses. We are willing to walk further to load and unload, a meaningful concession that prioritizes the safety for children and families attending the ballet school, including my own daughter. At the same time, we still need access to the back portion of the alley in a practical and historically intended way that has supported our operations for over a decade, and many for those before us. By implementing a solution like a pedestrian safe bollard halfway through the alley, we can keep it usable for both purposes, protecting children and families, and everybody can thrive. We believe this is a fair solution that offers a balanced path forward with a positive impact on the city. The government is not meant to choose which businesses thrive and which fail. And it was never meant to shy away from debate, from addressing tough questions with transparency, and it was surely not intended to lobby against its citizens without recourse. Our government was designed to listen, to mediate, not to punish those who dare to disagree. I have dedicated every day of my life and livelihood to understanding the history of this nation, particularly the early days of our republic. The men who founded this nation fought a revolution because they were tired of being silenced, tired of their needs being disregarded in the favor of the wants of a few. The men who wrote the Constitution were not afraid of debate, of discussion, or of compromise. They understood the strength of a community lies in finding a middle ground. They were not afraid of these difficult questions. They wrote provisions in place to ensure that the people could be heard, not as a formality, but with true consideration. Open debate leads to informed decisions and gives everyone the chance to pursue happiness. In this moment, almost exactly 250 years later, we have the ability to choose to uphold these same principles of fairness, transparency, and compromise the founders envisioned. If a constitution was written with the ability for amendments to meet evolving needs, then surely the same approach can be taken when it comes to a local downtown action plan written almost 10 years ago. The decision made tonight affects more than just me. It will affect my neighbors and future tenants of either adjacent building. Our country is built by people working together, by leaders who recognize that honor and fairness hold value. We can do the same if we focus not on the objects, but let reason, compromise, and compassion lead the decision. I have with me a letter from my neighbor, Mary Lou Hume Miller of the Lebanon Ballet School, the other affected party, expressing her support for this compromise, and I would be happy to share that with everyone. Together, we have worked to find a solution that benefits both our businesses. Convert the front half of the alley into a pedestrian walkway and leave the back half open to continue use to serve and support businesses. I welcome your questions in an effort to come to a decision that reflects what our government is truly meant to be: fair and willing to listen to all voices in the room. It is my sincere hope that a reasonable compromise prevails so that all who reside and work downtown can continue to thrive. I do have that letter with me. She does put her personal phone number on it, so I would like to not put this up here for her sake, but I am happy to read it or share it with anybody who would like to hear it. So I've been in that building for a very long time. It's been my dream. We rented it and eventually, like I said, moved our home into it. And those dumpsters have been in that side alley, and there's really nowhere else they could go. We did temporarily, and this is maybe where some point of confusion and misremembering is happening, we did temporarily move them around the side to near our back door. However, we recently underwent an insurance audit, and those dumpsters were blocking several meter bases. And to move them anywhere on that part of the property would then put them in front of different meter bases, unfortunately. So there's nowhere that we are really allowed to have them other than that side alley. Nobody in a modern day and age can load and unload regularly in 10 minutes. My neighbor can't even get their grease trap sucked out in 10 minutes. It's just not feasible anymore. That was written in 1939 when somebody had to deliver milk from the milk building on the south side of town to the tenants on the square. That's not a modern concession. We have, as somebody had mentioned earlier, parked our trailer in there for a prolonged amount of time, unfortunately. At that time, there was no ballet door there. We didn't affect anybody. Our neighbors had no complaints, and we were leaving early the next morning. That is by no means something we need to do. With that prolonged time there, the trailer isn't there right now. It lives somewhere else to begin with. We were simply asking, even an hour would be reasonable to load and unload, even though that 10-minute rule is a separate issue, just to be transparent in our needs as a business. When Scott's Five and Dime was there, they utilized both of the downstairs floors and all of the upstairs. So 2 floors in 117 and 1 floor in 119 above for business. And now we have mixed use between the tenants and the business. So then again, it is an evolving need. And I truly appreciate the consideration given to us because this is our home. It has always been our home, and it has always been our dream for it to maintain and as a home and grow our business there. We've put everything we've ever had into having that business and building it one that is respected across the country. And we're happy to do that in our hometown. And we're asking for your assistance in maintaining our investment because we truly do invest in the community because it's our community as well. So I'm happy if you have any questions to answer those. Also happy to share the letter from Mary Lou stating that she's never had an issue with us in that alley at all and is more than happy to solidify this compromise that we've come up with. Thank you for your time.
Any questions for Abby from the council?
Yeah, one question for you.
Yes,
How
sir.
big is your trailer?
26 feet.
So in that compromise we're speaking about here, we can park that safely there to,
For the purpose of loading and unloading, we can put the trailer there and leave a hook to our truck and still load and unload and not block any intersections for anybody. Thank you.
Abby, do you have like a written document from whatever entity told you you couldn't put a dumpster in front of an electrical meter?
My husband does have that at home. However, I actually do have the code we were referred to. Would that be acceptable?
Yeah, because he told me it was insurance, and I
Yes.
checked around with some insurance people, and I used to sell insurance and
Sure.
never heard of that.
Yes,
So
NEC 110.26. And actually, I have it on my phone. I'm happy to share it with you. I don't have it written down here. That states that the area that needs to be clear around the meter bases.
You said NEC?
I believe so, yes.
Do you know what that's referencing? Like, there's not Indiana code, so like,
I'm not a lawyer.
National Electrical Code, I think.
okay. Thank you.
So it wasn't the Lebanon Utilities telling you that?
No, sir.
You looked it up in a
Our
code
insurance
book.
agent made sure to make us very aware of it. We did not seek that information out on our own. It was much more convenient for me to have it where I had it in front of the meter bases. However, they had an issue with the safety therein. Thank you, sir.
Further questions for Abby?
I got one.
Yes, sir.
Before you acquired the Norman facility building, okay, did you use the alley then to load, unload materials at that point?
Yes, sir.
You did, okay.
Abby, what percentage would you say your business is out the back of the store?
I don't see how that's legally relevant. However, I can tell you that my retail operations have had the best year we've ever had since we reopened in April 8th of last year.
Well, I'm just curious, like understanding like how much is out the front versus out the back, right? Because you talked about the loading is really important to you. And I guess I'm just trying to understand if that's the bulk of your business, is the downtown the right spot for you? That's all.
So
Well, you have to get, when they bring in supplies, you have to be able to unload so the retailer can sell stuff.
Oh, no, for sure. That's why I'm just trying to understand. Is it retail? Is it logistics? I'm trying to understand like where's the balance of the sales going? That's it.
I operate a retail and a wholesale business out of that building as is permitted, as do my neighbors who operate a restaurant and a catering business. Things are prepared on site and taken elsewhere, but I do operate daily with customers at a retail business and continue to utilize those buildings as they always have. However, my private financial breakdown of that is not relevant to the matter at hand.
Is it a majority either way? You're willing to share that with us at all?
It is not relevant to the matter at hand. People come to me as a destination to seek out our expertise, and they come to Lebanon to shop with me. And then they go eat and they stay in hotels because they came from far away. There's a significant impact in having those retail spaces, and I would still need to operate the way that we are if I was only retail, because of the need to load and unload and tailor to other places as far as deliveries and shipments.
When there's events downtown, do you get a lot of foot traffic at that time also?
It depends on the event. Some we do, some we don't. For things like Oktoberfest, no, not really. Nobody does. And it hasn't happened for many, many years. It's always been that way. We are, however, the single most affected business on the square by street closures. As in, we are the only one who gets blocked in. So that is another reason utilizing that alley is incredibly important to our access. We do try to be good stewards and not interrupt because we want those events to succeed, even if they aren't for us.
I had another question if I can remember. You kept talking and it passed me by. I'm sorry.
Where do you guys park your trailer?
We park it at a private facility when it's not in an active use of loading and unloading.
That was one of my questions about the trailer was when you bring it in and you have to load it up for a trip or whatever you're going to take, whatever, and you leave it in the alley, do you have another place you could leave it other than the alley?
While we were loading and unloading, the alley is where we need to go.
I understand you're going to be there loading and
Oh,
unloading.
okay, then yes,
Once-
sir. It
Once
doesn't
you
live
get it
there.
loaded, you're talking about leaving early in the morning. And
So that is a sin we have committed in the past. I'm more than willing to admit that we have left it there longer than necessary. When we didn't have complaints from our neighbors, we didn't realize we were affecting anybody, and to this day we weren't. However, that trailer does live elsewhere 90% of the time. It is not in that alley now, and it won't be until I need to unload or load in upcoming days. It does not live there. It does not have to stay there longer than the time it takes to load and unload. It can't immediately be moved to where it resides.
My only thought is that, we got an alleyway that's really not it. And I voted for the ordinance to be our downtown plan. I agree with the downtown plan, but we also have to realize that this is an alley that's not used that often for pedestrian traffic unless there's an event downtown. That's probably the only time it's used. We do not have, if we had a parking lot to the west that handled downtown people parking and working and the courthouse or whatever, where they could park and walk up the alley, that would be ideal. But there's not a lot of people in that alley
Yes, sir.
all the time.
No, sir. My office window opens to that alley, and I can tell you that you can hear everything, and it is not traversed very often. The only people going.
That may change though, with the doorway to, well, it may change with two things. It may change with the doorway to the dance facility. And the conversation I had with you and Casey, and Casey was talking about wanting to put a door on his side to get into the back there off the alley too. That all could change in the future.
It could. And that's why proposing the halfway point protects Mary Lou and her business and the girls and that are going in and out of there, because that encompasses her door and leaves it pedestrian friendly, and very few people make it past her door. The door that we were talking about putting in when you were there is actually opening up a door that I had mentioned here that was previously used as a freight door in and out of the back part of that building, and it would remain for that purpose, not a public entrance on our part.
I understand what you would like to have, okay? But I'm kind of looking at it though, as if we only close off let's just say we close off half that alley to accommodate you a loading, unloading zone, okay, opportunity. When that's closed and you're not there loading and unloading, and you can't park there all the time, somebody else is going to park in that alley.
And that's fine. It's not been a problem up till now.
Once it's closed is what I'm saying is somebody's going to be parked there, and
But they've had that opportunity all along. So that opportunity's been there all along because it's not a one straight through.
Well, I understand, but I'm just saying, once you put that barricade up there, somebody's going to park there.
And we aren't asking for total control. We aren't asking for like Chop House or Cowan's or even like Clusbrew's has on the street where they have complete control of a public entity. We don't want that. We simply want to be able to continue and maintain free use for us, for repairs, for necessary things downtown. We are not asking for it to be our part of the alley. We simply want the ability to do what we've done and work with our neighbors when we need to and utilize it for the short amounts of time that we do need it, which it's not every day, and it's very seasonal. It's not every month. And so we've been able to work with any type of parking there that has happened up till now, which I can't think of anybody aside from repair persons to either building. But that's part of being neighborly, and it's part of being downtown. We don't want control of it. We're not asking for it to be ours. We're not asking for it to be our parking spot. We simply want to maintain for use as has happened for those buildings for many, many years and since it was platted. Only in that back half.
My questions for Abby? Okay. Thank you, Abby. Any additional public comment?
Hi, Council. My name is Corey Coots. I'm here representing both the Heart of Lebanon as president of Heart of Lebanon, but also as a lifelong resident of the city of Lebanon. a few things that I just want to kind of address and urge you to pass this ordinance in its entirety for a couple of different things. So my first request is that we take a step back and take names off of any of the businesses. And the reason for that is this isn't an ordinance for the building to the left or to the right of it. This is an ordinance for the pedestrian alleyways of the city of Lebanon. And buildings can change at any point in time for any reason, right? So I understand that we may have done something somewhere for some period of time because that's the way we've always done it, but that doesn't mean that's what's going to carry forward. Okay, so an ordinance is something that looks beyond me as the president of Heart of Lebanon, beyond any of those building owners right there, right this second. It looks into the future. Those can also be changed in the future as well, which is what councils are elected to do. Okay. So with that, I will remind you, again, this came about because of the alley-oop project. If we can, I've got a number of different pictures I'm going to share here. So alley-oop, Heart of Lebanon raised $108,000 through private donations and through other entities within Lebanon and honestly outside of Lebanon for this alley. This ordinance came before you because right now, if someone wanted to take a dumpster or any type of installation, they could place it in that alley and not really have any recourse. So in an effort to maintain and protect a $108,000 investment, that's where this idea has come from, okay? I will tell you that I've had the opportunity to travel not only the entire state, but throughout the entire country, both representing the Heart of Lebanon as well as just myself enjoying our nation. And these activation programs are being very, very pushed throughout the entire country. It's a quality of life activation, and it's not something that's new and unique to the city of Lebanon or the state of Indiana. This is happening throughout. Just to give you an example of some of those activations, I do have. So most of these are from the state of Indiana. So this is Greensburg specifically. You'll notice obviously similar lighting. They have a community event going on. I actually have that same image without the people. And what I think is most impactful is every day, this is what that alley looks like. So it does convert from an entire community event to a beautiful, walkable, planted alley. We've got another one from Noblesville. Again, it's simple, but it is clean. Notice all of the everything matches from the trash containers to the tables to the architecture around it. The reason why I believe this should be passed in its entirety, and I understand the word compromise, but the reason compromise doesn't work in this particular instance is for alleys like this from Fort Wayne. So as you can tell, somebody has put in quite a lot of money through the lighting above, the ornate painting pattern, and as you look at it, it has a completely different appeal than what we saw in those previous pictures. So by allowing access to commercial dumpsters, you completely change the entire outlook of the alley. So I understand there is this vision of compromise and change to, you know, front half, back half, that sort of thing. But the reality, when you put that into play, turns out like this. And I think that's the biggest struggle. So that is why we're looking at closure in its entirety. A couple other things just to point out to you, so you're aware of some of the happenings in specifically that eastern alley. So the eastern alley does have a temporary art structure that was fully approved by the Historic Preservation Commission. That temporary word is kind of a loose term because it is guaranteed to last at least 3 years due to some of the funding mechanisms that we're going to be using to place that. So this may be where some of that confusion is coming in of the rendering showing the front half and the back half. This is the rendering specifically for the mural itself of that temporary installation. So what Kevin was referring to was the 2016 plan for the downtown as a whole, which activates that entire alleyway. So I think that's some of the confusion we heard a little bit earlier on half versus full on these renderings. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, again, stepping away from names and business names and that sort of thing. This the current GIS image of that alleyway. The courthouse is at the top of this page and of course down here. So when we look at public ways, we have two things. As a business owner, I am not allowed to place my private items, such as a dumpster, in a public way. So in my building that is not on the square, I can't place my dumpster on the sidewalk or in the roadway because it's a public way. So I understand that we feel there's a practical difficulty in this case, and it's a little bit hard to see the lines, but the lines of the alley are to the building or very, very near the building, within 1 foot. So storage of the commercial dumpster would be illegal in any case, even if it were allowed to not be a pedestrian alleyway or anything. If you look at the buildings next to it, you'll notice it's kind of hard to see. These are actually dumpsters and trash cans back here. And what you'll notice is those are within the property of the building owners. They are not located on the alleyway itself. It's a little bit different in the view because we're not looking straight down on the buildings. That's why the alleyway looks offset, but they do still fall within the footprint of the property itself. This is also the case. I don't know what button I just hit, but that didn't do us any good. There it goes. If you look at, so the building in the bottom corner there is actually the reporter building. So they store their dumpster at the back of their building. However, that dumpster is located within their property boundaries. So the city would have no jurisdiction over any regulation because that's a private property. So I guess in closing, again, I understand the idea of compromise. I understand compromising. However, in this particular instance, it's very difficult to compromise in this way that's going to continue to grow our downtown and deliver those quality of life initiatives that we've really been pushing for over the last 10 years as a city. Any questions for me from the Heart of Lebanon's perspective?
You think the dumpster behind the Presbyterian Church is on their property? Across from the reporter parking lot?
Over, is it in this region?
Yeah, it's across from the reporter's parking lot. It sits right behind the building. It's in the alley.
Okay. Okay.
I'm saying that, is Cluz's dumpsters in his property line?
To my knowledge, yes. And if it's not, that's an entirely different discussion.
I think we just need to find a solution for the dumpster
Well, the solution is, again, if we look at the back of the building in question, there's storage facility there. Or if we're talking about collaboration and community partnership, there would even be storage capacity available behind the reporter building.
Other questions for Corey?
The back alley, using the back half for the dumpsters like they are right now and having it blocked off for pedestrian for the front half is probably better than using the whole thing, because if you, like the picture you have, I've got one I printed too, and the back of those buildings back there is nothing that we really want to promote. And if you take it clear out to the end, there's going to be a lot more traffic going back behind there, walking and everything, and a lot more potential. And it's these dumpsters, if you block it at those meters, they won't even be walking by those.
No, generally speaking, this alley is used directly through all the way to East Street. So I think the impression that you may have is that folks are accessing from the north and south ends and then coming into this alley. The reality is, especially for events downtown, as well as honestly just general parking, getting to Clues, getting to any of the restaurant establishments, finding parking is very difficult these days. So folks will park back on East Street, and this would be a direct cut through coming straight to the west from the east on East Street. So they wouldn't be passing behind Clues. They wouldn't be passing between, for the majority. Now, are they going to? Absolutely. There is that possibility, but the majority are going directly through from East Street to Meridian.
I'm just saying for the view, for the city, for the beautification like we want, to cut it off at the gas meters for the pedestrian is a way better than to take it to the end. And then it's all back there with all the rear end of those businesses. And it's not a pretty sight back there.
How would it be better
Because
to see it from one direction instead of two directions?
you can only see it from one direction anyway. You can't get, well, you can walk in from the other side, I guess, where the planter is. But if you open it up clear to the end, then that just leaves it open on the cross alley there for every type of anything going on back there. It's not a
Right.
good area back there.
But that's where people are not going.
But if
So
you
again,
block
I
it
refer
off-
to this picture. This picture is the exact.
Not really, because it's not blocked off. It's got a hole through. That's all I'm saying.
What
I'm
do you
not-
mean it's not blocked off? That's essentially what it's going to look like, except for a bollard standing up in the middle of the road.
Well, but blocking it off.
mean,
Either way,
there's not
just
gonna-
stopping the pedestrian.
Blocking it off with, I
For
block it off with.
pedestrian traffic is what I'm talking about. So
There's not a fence
But there-
installation to my knowledge.
Yeah.
It's a bollard to stop vehicles.
Right, but wouldn't you put more there or something there to
Are you
make
saying you want us to put a wall? Put a barricade there?
another bollard there or whatever on the other side so that it's noticed, or your, those white fence things?
Well, a bollard will stop a vehicle, but doesn't stop pedestrians from walking though.
What's going to
Right.
stop them if it's not there? Nothing. It's no different, but
No, that's,
it would, I think
We
that
don't
it's going
want
to
to stop
stop.
traffic,
but-
people traffic.
we don't want to stop people
traffic.
traffic. Yeah.
No.
But if you have just the front half of that, going down to the end is not a good thing.
Well, I
Wait.
think what Corey wants to do is beautify it from Meridian Street all the way to the
So you're
cross
going to do the
alley.
whole crossways and behind it and
Beautify it, make
everything?
it look good.
On the back
make
of
it
the
look
buildings?
Wonderful. Put a bollard there by the gas meter so a car can't go
Put a bollard-
further.
Put a bollard all the way at the rear of the buildings, similar to like what we did. So this is alley-oop. This was prior to the bollard being installed. There's a bollard located right here. So there is no vehicular access behind like the county building. And this would then go up to North Street. So there's one bollard installed there that prohibits all vehicular, including golf carts, which has been an issue on that eastern side during like our Friday night events. Golf carts actually drive up to Meridian Street. So they sit there and watch. So a bollard at the back end would prohibit those golf carts as well.
Or can you put that Fort Wayne picture back up there, please?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I understand what you're talking about here with the dumpsters. They are in blue, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Right past those, the brown is a wall, correct? Which separates.
That's actually a larger dumpster that's faced sideways.
What is on the other side of that?
Nothing.
Are those tables? It looks like a
Yeah,
pretty wide alley.
Yeah, it appears so. Like this is an umbrella, and I'll bring it up to you. I'm not gonna lie, it's hard to see. This wasn't on a high quality print.
Sure, but what I'm saying here is, and even in the picture, everybody is enjoying this part of the alley where the festival or whatever is going on. I'm assuming there's tables here and they're using all that. Does that look unattractive? Sure, it does. But are we saying this is exactly how the alley's going to look, like this? No, we don't know that.
Hey, Corey, can you?
Okay, so then my question is, and
I also
we want to put a big mural here, and I understand this. I'm all for this mural. I'm all for the safety of all these kids, but we're accommodating the dance studio because they now have a door. Yep, yes, we are. We are. Because they have a door, so now we're going to make it a pedestrian walkway so that the kids can safely get in the building. What's wrong with painting a dumpster?
So a couple of things there. So
Fine.
again, to take the names off of it, because I don't believe we accommodated a building to do anything for anyone else. A side-loaded entry is not uncommon. That alley was already vacated to vehicular traffic prior to this, right? So nothing was done differently for that side load of the ballet school other than the HPC, the Historic Preservation Commission, stating that it was appropriate. It got a certificate of appropriateness to side load. So this isn't about protecting a pedestrian pathway for a business. This is about beautifying an alley and protecting investment in an alley for years to come.
But we can still do that and work with our business owners.
Rather than lose that business that's been there 13 years, and still, we could still have that quality of life, like you said, and compromise.
You can have a mural that goes all the way down the whole wall, all the way back. You can have a bollard in the middle. You could even extend tables all the way down if you were having a festival or something. I'm sure that if we were having a festival and they didn't need to unload or unload, they could make an accommodations if the one time there was a festival or something. I just think you guys could have the mural, you guys could beautify it, but have the back little part open where they could load and unload and do a compromise. I think that we could have both.
And I don't think we're talking about we're going to have a festival and the Sampsons are going to say, no, I'm going to park my trailer. No, they're not like that. They're going to move the trailer. There's not going to be anything back there. But I guarantee you, like you said, golf carts, we can't control them. They're going to be everywhere.
Which is why, to the point earlier, if you put a bollard halfway up, I guarantee you more vehicles are going to go there now. I guarantee it. If you put a stop halfway through,
The city can tow cars. I mean, we can
okay.
we could do that if we chose to do that. I mean,
And I don't disagree with you whatsoever. But again, to get back to protecting investment by private individuals and public individuals, right? So if you'll show my screen again, here's more of the reality of what happens in that alley. So pallets have begun to be dumped back there recently, most recently after the HPC made a decision. There's the view of a dumpster at a particular time in the past, right? So that is not current. That is not recent. That is not recent. I will.
No, that's not
That's
Correct.
That's irrelevant.
It's a dumpster. Can a dumpster get like that?
That picture's not
We,
current.
okay, I don't have the picture of the refrigerator that stayed out there for a couple of weeks ago. I don't have that picture.
We have a barricade there right now at the end of the road, at the
It's
end
for
of the
the,
alley.
it's
On
for the
Meridian
construction,
Street.
because of the
But-
construction for,
But who's to say that we can't put that because it's not permanent? And then if they need to load and unload, they can just slide it aside. Go ahead and do their loading and then put it back so you don't have your other traffic coming in. If that's what, if you want to block nobody else from using it, let them.
Board of Works approved the alley closure for the work.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that at all.
Okay.
I'm just saying, can't we do something like that to help the issue for no golf
Well, I mean,
carts?
there's two issues at play here, right? And I think it's fair to, and, how do we want to solve it, right? One, there's the loading and unloading issue, right? Which, despite my questions, right, we don't know what percentage of the business is out the front versus out the back, right? So how critical is that loading? We don't know. And two, right, the other question then is the dumpster, right? And whether we want that in the alley, yes or no, right? The ordinance would allow them to come to the Board of Works, say, hey, Board of Works, we don't have a good spot to put this dumpster. Can you approve it putting it here, right? The ordinance would allow the Board of Works to say, yep, we hear your case, and yeah, you don't want to block any electrical things, and fair point, and yep, there's no other option for you. And they could approve to place the dumpster there. The Board of Works should do that. I mean, I would argue the Board of Works could put up a bollard and say just no loading no matter what now, right? That's under the Board of Works purview of maintaining all the roads. So that's kind of the question is, do we codify this pedestrian alley and do it, or do we just let it operate it as it is now? And essentially there would just be the dumpster is the main point we're talking about.
Well, then if we only have those two choices, I'd say leave it alone like it is. Just don't do anything then. Just leave it like it is if we can't compromise and keep the business to where they can function and we don't lose that business and keep the pedestrian walkway. I would agree. We should do nothing.
And this is where I understand, and there's a reason why I asked Mrs. Sampson what percentage of the breakdown was, right? Because I think what's the problem we've gone into, right, is that, Sampson Leathers, they located downtown when it was a very cheap, underutilized place to be, right? Absolutely, right? They've grown, right? Our downtown has grown, and it's started to become more and more of a conflict. And that's part of what's causing this issue, right? And they're stretching what they can do, right? I mean, again, this is just my own personal experience. I hardly everybody see anyone in the actual physical retail shop, right? The downtown's designed to be a retail restaurant destination. That was the whole point of it, right? I don't even see people in the craft room very often either, right? So I guess I'm struggling with, is this a retail shop? Because frankly, if it's a distribution logistics company, that's not a permitted use downtown, right? And so did it start once as a retail shop, now grow up and into a logistics company, which is now no longer a proper fit for the downtown? And that's where we're struggling with this.
Yeah, that's,
We're still talking with it. Good, Mike.
I think that's getting a little bit out of bounds, judging somebody's business by perceived traffic. I mean, because
And that's why I asked.
I
'Cause
had
I
a
was
karate
curious.
school down there, and nobody came in the afternoon. They didn't get there till 6. So, I mean, you could have said the same thing about me,
I just,
I have a question there.
Zero source.
Okay.
I just wanted to make a comment. I think not a lot of people, I didn't know a lot of information until I went in and talked with them about how cool the stuff they do in there is. I mean, they make stuff for the show Outlander. They have people that come from all over. I mean, they were featured in the New York Times. I mean, how cool is that we have a business on our square that does that type of thing? I mean, that's amazing that we have one of the best in the country right here on our square. And I think that's amazing. And I wish that more people in the town would know that, because if more people did, I bet you'd get more foot traffic, people just walking in there just wanting to see the cool stuff. I didn't realize that how cool of the pieces that you guys make in there.
I didn't
So,
either.
Yeah, I didn't. And I think that's really cool. And I think that puts Lebanon, I think if more people knew the things you guys did in there, I mean, you'd get more foot traffic.
Well, I think we're getting off track here
Yeah,
just a
I do
little
too.
bit.
So
Further comment, Abby, if you want to respond, you can. Oh, I'm sorry. Keith, you had a comment too, while you're walking up.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
If I understood what the attorneys, what we've heard, that this board, this council has no control over those alleys, and it goes to the Board of Works.
The council will set the legislation that permits dumpsters to be in alleys, right? So that's currently what's allowed now, is it allows alleys to be used for refuse pickup and storage. It does not have any say currently over how alleys are maintained or operated.
That's what I'm saying. So
Correct.
it's a board, it goes back to the Board of Works, is that what I'm hearing?
Correct. So for the loading issue is really not on the table. We're really talking about whether or not whether we're okay with having dumpsters in the 3 main alleys off of the downtown square.
That's what I understand, is I've listened to all of this.
Yeah. And that's frankly that's what it's mostly, I mean, that's really what it's about.
I missed it.
Yeah. And no, you haven't at all. And I mean, I think it's trying to be presented as compromise that, hey, well, if you do it here, then we can still use it for loading, which isn't really a permitted, 10-minute loading is what it outlines, which heard that that's not the reality of what happens. So, yeah. Good, Abby.
Sure. I just wanted to make a point of clarification on something that Mr. Coots said earlier, just in a legal stance. In a code that was provided to me by Kevin Grulich at an earlier date, 101.001, dumpsters are allowed in the alleyways. My neighbor has 7 trash receptacles in the alleyway because there is not an acceptable place for him to put them. They referenced the back. Mr. Coots referenced a photo with the back half of my property. And again, that's where we tried to move them and we're told that we could not because of the safety reasons with those meter bases. My husband's at home and he's cringing right now about this. This is the next statement, I promise you. It is incredibly disheartening to hear my mayor and my town say, and it is by no means, it's a select few say that I've outgrown my space and I need to leave. I was just invited to go. So we're okay with protecting private investments, but the hundreds of thousands of dollars and everything I've ever done in my life that I invested to making those 2 buildings the best I could is being judged by somebody who frankly isn't my customer. I have customers that come here to our town, who eat, who stay here, who get to enjoy it. And it's because I've built a destination shop. And to be honest, it looks good. I have frequent rentals in the craft room, the majority of weekends. So with leading questions like how much of my business goes out the back door, how much catering goes out my neighbor's back door, good for them. I am happy to support them. I think it is excellent. I think they should make as much profit and money as they can off those catering contracts because good for them. Small business is hard. It is really hard. And we have stuck it out downtown because we love it. And that is our home and that is our dream that we are fighting for. So to be invited to leave because one person feels that my business is not an appropriate fit for my buildings is an inappropriate suggestion by my government that it should not be acceptable. That is not okay. And I apologize for taking your time, but we utilize those buildings the way that they were always intended to promote our local community, to give back to our community, to be members of our community, and to beautify via the redoing of those storefronts and the maintaining of those buildings as we have since we were 19 years old. And I think that deserves some consideration that's given to plenty of other businesses for their private investments. It shouldn't be subject to a personal vendetta. Thank you.
Further public comment? Said further public comment?
Denise Niblick, 919 Morningside Drive. I do want to say something just because I don't want it to feel personal. That's obviously hurt feelings and things coming. I've had great experiences. I actually bought a desk when I first moved here from the Sampsons, and we didn't have a truck, we didn't have a way to move it, and they literally just got their truck, took it out, delivered it. They didn't know me at all. So I don't want this to feel personal at all. Our girls play together. Like I don't want it to feel personal. So to take a step away from that, I do, however, have a great love for our downtown, and I am a frequent flyer of the square. I am on the board with Heart of Lebanon, and I think that gives me an opportunity to learn a lot about Main Streets. And I have huge dreams that maybe won't come true. But that alley, I have a really big dream. Would love to see some sort of like alley activation of a playground, something that's a really safe place for kids. We lack green space. We don't have a great area for kids to feel extremely safe. And I bring that up because I know the difference between an event that has a closed down road versus an event that doesn't have a closed road. And my kids are climbing on the courthouse walls, and I'm scared all of a sudden they're going to dart into traffic. So I do have a little bit of a concern with doing halfway, just because I do think that means there's still people backing up. There's still people, cars coming in. I'm glad the bollards were brought up because I do think that would add safety. I also think that my kids would probably play on those when they come out of the ballet building or are running down the alley. So it scares me a little bit just on the mom side to have not a fully pedestrian alley on that side. I don't fully understand what would be the next step for this. If you're talking about, like, if this would be an amendment to this ordinance, is this something that doesn't have to necessarily be decided, that it's in concrete, that there would now be almost a public parking spot created in this alley? Because I think that's a little bit of my concern, is that we are really pigeonholing ourselves. If a huge grant comes through and we're able to activate this whole alley, but there's basically already a public parking spot there for someone to use, is that going to lessen our chances to be able to do a full alley activation project? It could be changed later, maybe, but I don't know if we have new tenants coming in and there's a spot that now people think is perfect for loading and unloading, and that's a benefit to them. Taking that away, I think, would be even harder once it's been in place, if that makes sense to you. I did want to show too, this is a top-down view, and just because I did notice this on the GIS, if we can put this up here. Sorry, it's pretty horrible quality. The courthouse is here, and then this is the alley that we're talking about. And I'm zooming in because this is obviously, there are 3 access points for this alley. And somebody talked about the dumpsters being right here next to the Reporter building. This building actually comes out further than the Reporter. That's why you see the property line difference on the GIS. So there is some cover if there are dumpsters that are put there and you're talking about line of sight looking down. That building actually comes out further into the alley than the Reporter does. So I think that's why the property line's a little different there. I guess 2 things I would say then. Being on the square a lot, I'm sure you've all been stopped before by trucks that are unloading for the various businesses. Trucks do stop in the roadways to unload. They do it quickly. They do it efficiently. It's probably horrible. I can't imagine as a building owner having to have the stress of unloading something that quickly, especially when we're thinking food products, things like that. But that's part of downtown. I stop all the time for trucks when they're unloading all their large deliveries. So I do think that there are alternatives. When you talk about the 3-way alley, this isn't my experience, so I don't want to speak for somebody, but the alley between Reporter and PPM, you're talking, if somebody pulls there to unload, the difference between the trailer and truck distance that you're talking in this alley, right? That's the difference of people walking down there. And if you're talking an hour that it's closed, there's 2 still other outlets on the alley. So it's actually a very unique way to have traffic be able to move, because it's not an only single one-way in direction alley. So I just wanted to mention that because I'm very terrified of like losing out on a chance to really make this alley a special place. Because if you looked at Alley Oop and you took half of that away, if you looked at the Chop House and you took half of that away, I'm worried that we're not going to live up to the potential that I know Lebanon has. And I don't want to sell ourselves short for that. And that's not personal, because I love our businesses. That's just a fear of mine, that we're going to lose a real opportunity here for one public parking space that I think could create more issues than not. So that's just what I want to say. So thank you for listening.
Any of your comments? Any additional public comment?
Jonathan Haas, Land Surveyor, 105 North Meridian. I've seen a couple different GIS maps thrown up here. We all know that GIS stands for Get It Surveyed. Fact of the matter is, the Sampson's dumpster sticks no further into that east-west alley as Clue's dumpsters do on the north-south alley. The GIS maps are skewed. There's about roughly 1.5 feet, 2 foot south of their building that they actually own before you actually get to the alley. I know I surveyed their building, last year, 2 years ago, and you bought it. Yeah. Same with the alley across the way behind the Presbyterian Church. They have multiple dumpsters sitting there in the alley. Their property corners are literally behind the bollards. I know that because I surveyed that back in 2013. I know where my property corners are. I know where everything up and down that whole block is. I also know when you guys did the street renovation project there in front of the square a few years back, you dropped that big concrete planter to close off the alley to vehicular traffic. That impeded my ingress egress to my 2 parking spots behind my building by a quarter. I wasn't compensated for it. I didn't say anything about it. I bring trucks and trailers in there all the time with my business. I have a UTV I pull behind my truck. When you have a trailer hitched behind your truck, there's not many places you can park downtown. So I've been guilty of using that alley too, because I can just pull in, back right up in there, run in and do something at the office real quick, run back out, go. I mean, I don't see where this is in real much of a stretch to ask for to compromise on this alley because, again, we all use it. Clues has trucks they're delivering at like 5 o'clock in the morning. They'll sit there for an hour plus. Their dumpsters stick out in the alley. I've complained to Kevin about them a couple times, but I've been told that as long as they maintain 11 feet of travel way, they're fine. It's barely 11 feet between the power pole and their dumpsters, but it's fine. So I can get my truck down through there. The garbage truck has a hard time on Fridays. The UPS truck has a hard time. The big construction dumpsters are currently sitting there at the corner right now. Makes it a little bit more difficult because there's 2 bollards that don't move at all on the other side, but we make do. I don't see where this is too much to ask to just, if you want to put the bollard there, the bollard's not going to stop go-kart or golf carts. The alley's 16.5 feet wide. It's another 2.5 a sidewalk there. A bollard in the middle of that is not going to stop a golf cart. A golf cart's 4 foot wide at most. They're just going to go right around if they want to. Plus, when the Heart of Lebanon is having events down there on the square, more often than not, they put porta potties in that alley. Those vehicles park back down that alley to access the porta potties. The light box that controls all the overhead lights is there at the front of the alley underneath their stairway. When that needs maintenance worked on, those trucks need to be able to get to that alley as well. A bollard is not conducive. Our alley is kind of unique. We have utilities in that alley. We have gas meters. We have stuff that the other alleys don't necessarily have. That's what I'm just putting out there is just, we got to look at the whole thing as apples to apples. Mr. Cooch, he showed the alley looking at from the east with we got this here. Well, the pallet event was sitting there was been on their property because they own almost up to the curb face on that sidewalk back there on that alley street. Their dumpster, like I said, it sticks out about 3 feet into the alley, but there's still 13 feet of clearance between them and the nearest building. That's what we have with Clues. It's just the way it is downtown. They get deliveries that come and go. We have trucks that park in the back all day long. When the preschool PPM's dropping off, letting go, sometimes I can't get out my parking spot. I have to sit there for 5-10 minutes waiting for somebody, a parent that pulls in that alley to run inside and grab their kid because there's no parking there. It's just a matter of the fact. If there's Clues parked behind this building, I can't go to the north. Right now, that big dumpster's there. I can't swing the corner at the 90. So I'm stuck sitting there waiting for somebody to move. Just the way it works. I don't see where adding this bollard is going to make anything better at the end of the alley. I think it's just going to make things worse because, like I said, if I have to come flying in there and I'm going to park my truck back there, if I'm pulling my trailer, I'll sit there in the alley all day. I'll throw my strobe lights on and I'll make it look official. Throw a road cone out. Make it look like I'm working. It's just the way it works downtown. Nobody enforces the parking 2 hours. The courthouse employees are abusing the crap out of it. They have been for years, ever since we got away from having the guy walk around and mark the tires. Half the people park down there in the square at 4 o'clock or up to 4 o'clock are courthouse employees. We laugh watching the lemmings flee town every day at 4 o'clock. It's a ghost town downtown at 4:15. Take away our alleys and you're killing the businesses on their square. It's hard enough right now for us to get people in and out. And we put up with I support the stuff the Heart of Lebanon does, the farmer's market, this, that, and the other. But they shut down the street in front of my office for a hour a week. But I'm open. I can't get employees or customers in and out. My employees have a hard time getting in and out. We deal with it. It's just part of being downtown, being a neighbor. I don't see where, giving the citizens a concession to be able to have their dumpster there. I mean, everybody else has got dumpsters sitting out there and, it's no worse than anything else in the alley. So that's just my 2 cents. And like I said, we got to compare apples to apples, people. We can't look at one alley and say, well, this alley is special because, it leads to the courthouse. Well, the other alleys are equally as important.
Any comments? Additional public comment? Okay. Further discussion from council or a motion?
Well, we don't have the authority to make it, if I understood Kevin said.
You have the legislative authority to declare it a pedestrian alley, which is what this ordinance does. But the actual operations or, permits, approvals, whatever, that's what still always go through the Board of Works, which it always does now.
The works had that, not us.
They do have that now. Yes, that's what I'm saying. So that wouldn't change that. All this does is designate these as pedestrian alleys. That's what this ordinance does. There also going to be a motion to table.
I think we should have a little more time to come up with a solution that everybody can buy into. Because I think they should be able to back in there, maybe find something else about, I don't have an answer for the dumpsters, but the access to the alley should be there. Half of it. I still think you can do a great alley, get a great look by still allowing that. And it's not a public parking place. I mean, it's like saying every alley is a public parking place. No, it's not a public parking place. So anyway, I would make a motion that we table it and come up with a solution. What do you think, Kevin?
I'll second it.
That's entirely that's your purview. If you want to table it, edit it, cancel it, you tell me what you want to do. But I would say if you're going to table it, I'd like to walk away with some direction on what you'd like me to come back with. Because ultimately, again, I guess I want to iterate it, and I know there's some emotion in the room, but what we were trying to do is create an ordinance, to be quite honest, we should have done in 2016 to create an ordinance that aligns with the vision that the downtown master plan. And maybe there wouldn't have been as much heartache in 2016. Certainly wasn't really a whole lot of outcry when we closed the alleys to vehicular traffic. And in 2016, they weren't utilizing 117 North Meridian Street. So access to that door, at the time was Merle Norman had that basement in that property. Well, they were tenants of the property. So again, this was just an ordinance to try to protect the vision that was outlined in 2016. And at that time, the expansion that the Sampsons, the growth that the Sampson have seen, and congratulations on that, was not envisioned, or maybe envisioned is the wrong word. It didn't exist at that time. And activating the alleys as pedestrian spaces was the vision that this body set forth. So again, this is not about vendetta or anything more than protecting a vision for our downtown. And if that vision needs to change, I guess give me some direction on how you want to see that changed. The dumpsters, really, the dumpsters are allowed to clear up some of the things. Dumpsters are allowed to be stored in alleys. That's what alleys are defined to be there for. you have to maintain a travel way through there, as Mr. Haas mentioned. But that was really the main thing that this ordinance would prohibit, is the vehicular access and then the storage of trash and refuse in the alley. And again, back to trying to set the stage for the vision that was put forth and approved by this body. Should it have been in 2016? Absolutely. Did I even know what the alley ordinance said in 2016? No.
Kevin, we do have a motion right now, but before you sit down though, since I was accused of having a personal vendetta, did I bring this to you as an idea?
No.
Okay, thank you. So there's motion and second to table the motion, or table the ordinance is motion second. We have a second already. All those who say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, that is tabled. We'll come back with, if you would mind sending Kevin some feedback concepts to help us draft that. Where you guys want it to go, please let me know.
And I still pretty much want it to be for everybody. I want the business to be happy, the pedestrian, if you want that for the city, and for the loading and unloading back there for more than
I
one.
understand. No one tries to compromise probably more than me. If anyone works
that's
with me,
the
I try to find solutions that benefit everybody. It's difficult to weigh those compromises with the vision that we put forth with the downtown and in this
Things change, you
instance.
said that.
Things always do. It's the only constant.
So send Kevin the feedback on that. We'll try to get an amendment drafted with that. So, okay, that concludes the old business. Move on to new business now. Next item up is our Chadwick, I'm sorry, consent to take the agenda out of order. Yes. Thank you. All right, we'll move to ordinance 2025-11.
We have 5 minutes.
Sure. Yeah, let's stand recess for 5 minutes. All right, welcome back. We're going to move on to Ordinance 2025-11. This is authorizing taxable refunding of City of Lebanon, Indiana Sewage Works Revenue Bonds 2018. Authorized issuance of the City of Lebanon Sewage Works Refunding Revenue Bonds, Series 2025, and other related matters. This is on first reading. Scott or Rob? Yeah.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I thought it'd be good if Scott Miller could come up and just give a backdrop. This is going to be a similar format that we've done with the water bonds, but Scott will give a little bit of brief overview, and then I'll jump into the ordinances.
Thank you. Just as background, you've got two ordinances before you.
Mayor?
You want me to wait?
Mayor? Yeah. Can we have them to go the other way?
Hey, Kevin Krulik. Would you mind explaining that in the hallway, if that's okay? It's fine, but like keep explaining to them, but.
You take
but
that in the hallway.
Just in the hallway would be okay. All right, go ahead, Scott.
Yeah. So as we talked about before, you've adopted the LEAP wastewater rate ordinance. We now have two bond ordinances before you. The second one is for the LEAP projects. That will be very similar to what we did for the water back last fall. This first ordinance is to address the outstanding bonds for the civil district. The civil district has two issues outstanding right now. One of them has one payment left. We're just going to make that payment early, that it's due July 1st. We'll make it here in the next 30 to 45 days. That bond issue will be retired. The 2018 bond issue, however, will be outstanding for several years yet. And right now, that bond has the sole status of priority against the revenues of the Lebanon Municipal Wastewater Utility. And that was issued before we had two separate rate districts. Now with the adoption earlier this evening, you've got two separate rate districts, but those bonds were issued before that. And so they have all priority on all of the revenues of the utility. So to be able to go back and do what we talked about earlier and making sure that we've got LEAP paying for LEAP and civil paying for civil, we're going to refinance that outstanding bond issue from 2018 and essentially just replace it with an issue through the Indiana Finance Authority. So we're going to pay the one off, take out a new one with the IFA. Payments will be not exactly the same, but they'll be very similar. And so we'll leave civil district in exactly the same place, or almost exactly the same place that they're in now. But then IFA will own those bonds, and they can then they understand and recognize that those bonds will only have a priority against the revenues of the civil district, whereas the project bonds then will only have priority against the LEAP district. And so that's what is going on here, is just trying to clear the deck to get ready to do the project.
Hey, Scott? Yep. Yeah, Rob, you want to read that for us, please?
Yeah, and Mayor, if you'd like, I'll go ahead and read 2025-11, which is, again, what Scott was indicating, taking out the 2014 bonds and then as well as the 2018 bonds. This is a very lengthy ordinance that I'm sure you all enjoyed reading. But again, Ordinance 2025-11 is an ordinance authorizing a taxable refunding of the City of Lebanon, Indiana Sewage Works revenue bonds of 2018 and authorizing the issuance of the City of Lebanon Sewage Works refunding revenue bonds, Series 2025, and other related matters. So again, as Scott indicated, the city has previously issued in 2014 revenue bonds in the amount of $3,888,000 that are now outstanding with a principal amount of $345,000. And those are defined as the 2014 bonds, which will be paid off, as Scott indicated, yet this year. And that was pursuant to Ordinance 2014-18. It's also issued the Sewage Works revenue bonds of 2018 that were originally issued in the principal amount of $9,650,000. Those are defined as the 2018 bonds. And these, this council finds that the 2018 bonds should be refunded to modify the restrictive covenants in the 2018 bonds impeding additional financing. Again, to keep these districts are separate, and this will be called and is defined in this ordinance as the refunding bonds. On April 14th, 2025, this council adopted ordinance 2025-08. Again, that was the 2025 wastewater rate ordinance. And that established also the LEAP wastewater district, and which LEAP district will be operated and accounted for in all respects as a separate service area from the civil wastewater district. So the refunding bonds will constitute a first charge against the net revenues, again, of the wastewater district. There's several more pages of recitals in here, but I just want to go through each of the sections just to highlight it. Section 1 addresses the issuance of the refunding bonds. Section 2 goes into further detail on the refunding bonds, that amount will not exceed $10,630,000. And that, again, that's part of what the IFA program will be involved in. Section 3 talks about just book entry systems. That's on several pages in here and how that will be handled. Section 4 talks about the redemption of refunding bonds. That's on page 8. We have Section 5's execution and negotiability. Section 6 has the form of the refunding bonds. That's in Exhibit A that you've seen. Section 7 also talks about any continuing disclosures. With that, Section 8 is the sale of the refunding bonds. That goes on for several pages. Section 9 addresses the financial records and accounts and similar provisions that you've seen dealing with the accrued interest, the refunding of the bonds, and cost of issuance. And again, Section 12 addresses the pledge of the net revenues, and Section 13 addresses the funds in the account. Again, the civil district sewage works revenue funds. The rest of it is similar language that you've seen anytime we're going to be issuing bonds in here. And so that's Ordinance 2025-11.
Thank you, Rob. Any questions for Rob or for Scott concerning this? Yeah.
Why are we going through the Indiana Finance Authority?
You pull the mic down, Dick, so people can hear you better. Pull the mic down.
Oh,
Yep.
why are we going through the Indiana Finance Authority instead of just regular bond?
Because it will be easier to have them as the owner of those bonds for the civil district and working with us as we work through the separation of civil district and LEAP district. That's one reason, the main reason. Number two, with where the open market is right now, I'm not sure that we could do this as and end up with a savings on the transaction. With where interest rates are right now, IFA has agreed to work with us on this and leave civil in the same place as where it's at right now. And I don't know that we would get that in the market as it has existed over at least the last 2 weeks.
Right. So essentially, because what happens around the back end with IFA, right? They essentially take all of these bond issuances from all of these communities across the entire state of Indiana, and they issue kind of one issuance for all of the Indiana wastewater debt, more or less,
Correct.
right? So we're kind of in a big lump with a lot of other cities.
You're in a big pool and you're benefiting from the state's AAA rating on that effort.
Yeah. Any other questions? So essentially, long story short, we're kind of clearing the decks with this, bundling and make sure that all these good kind of bondholders get paid off from any previous debts, and then it's to help facilitate the issuance of the overall new one, long story short.
Exactly.
Okay. Make sense to everybody? Yes, sir. Okay. A lot of legalese, but explain in 15 seconds, right?
Lots of words.
Yep. Okay. Any public comment concerning ordinance? I'm going to do, should I do, you want to read 12 as well?
Sure.
Well, let me
Go
do,
ahead. You want to get
any public comment concerning ordinance 2025-11? Okay, that ordinance has been read on first reading. We'll take that up at our next meeting, which will be April 28th at 7:15 PM. So go ahead and read ordinance 2025-12.
Thank you, Mayor. Council Ordinance 2025-12, again, is an ordinance of this council authorizing now the issuance of revenue bonds or anticipation notes to pay the costs of certain additions, extensions, and improvements to the LEAP Wastewater District in the sewage works of the city. In connection with the development of the LEAP district, again, the city previously issued waterworks revenue bonds, as we know it, Series 2024, dated December 3rd, 2024. Those are defined as the 2024 water bonds. Again, on April 14th, 2025, this council adopted Ordinance 2025-08, the wastewater rate ordinance. All that's set forth in Exhibit C for you. And that is defined as the wastewater rate ordinance. The refunding bonds we previously addressed in Ordinance 2025-11 is the civil wastewater district bonds. These revenue bonds here in this Ordinance 12 are issued, will constitute a first charge against the net revenues of the LEAP wastewater district. The council, based upon a recommendation from the Utility Service Board, finds that certain additions, improvements, and extensions of the sewage works are necessary to serve the LEAP wastewater districts. And estimates have been prepared and filed by the engineers employed by the city for the construction of certain additions and extensions, and that's all set forth in Exhibits B1 and B2, and that's collectively defined as the project. The city, through the Utility Service Board, will advertise for, receive bids for the project, which shall be subject to the city's determination to construct all or a portion of the project, and subject to the city obtaining funds to pay for all or a portion of the project, that the maximum cost of the project, including incidental expenses, is an amount not to exceed $350 million. City finds that there are no funds on hand available to pay for the costs, and that the entire cost of the project is hereby authorized to be financed by the issuance of sewage works revenue bonds, and again, that's defined as the bonds. The city expects the first several series of the bonds that are authorized hereunder will be issued in the principal amount not to exceed $165 million, and that's defined as the initial bonds. Again, the city may enter into certain agreements with the Indiana Finance Authority under the wastewater loan program that's collectively defined as IFA program. The Lebanon Redevelopment Commission has created the LEAP Project Phase 1 Economic Development Area and has designated the entire area as the LEAP Project Phase 1 allocation area for the purposes of allocating and distributing property taxes under Indiana law. And again, that's defined as the allocation fund, and this is similar to what we did in the 2024 water bonds. This ordinance, again, is several pages, over 20 pages. I'll highlight the sections that I know you've had before you. So Section 1 is the authorization of the project and the service area designation. Again, this project will not exceed the sum of $350 million, and that's all defined as the LEAP wastewater district. Section 2 addresses the issuance of the bonds or bans if they're needed, and that's all pursuant to Indiana code. Section 3 is similar again to Ordinance 2025-11 that deals with the book entry provisions. This is several pages that addresses how that will be handled. Page 10 gets into the redemption of the bonds or bans if necessary. Section 5 is the execution of the bonds and the bans, the negotiability. Section 6 addresses, again, the form of the bonds, which is attached as Exhibit A to this ordinance. And then Section 7 addresses the authorization for the preparation and the sale of the bonds, the official statement, and any disclosures that are required. Section 8 is the sale of the bonds. Section 9, again, addresses the financial records and accounts. 10 is the accrued interest. Section 11 addresses the use of the proceeds and the cost of issuance. And in this, they'll have certain accounts that are set forth in there. Section 12 addresses the pledge of the net revenues. Section 13 addresses the funds that will be set up. And that's several different ones that are on pages 15, 16, 17 into 18. Section 14 addresses the maintenance of the accounts and the investments. And then we get into, again, additional provisions that we've seen in the other bond ordinances dealing with the rate covenants, additional bonds if necessary, and further covenants, maintenance, insurance, and subordinate indebtedness that are set forth in there.
Thank you, Rob. Any questions for Rob or Scott on that? So then this is the actual issuance of the bonds. Questions, concern? Okay. Any public comment concerning ordinance 2025-12? Okay. And again, we'll have that, take that up for our next meeting on second reading at April 28th at 7:15 p.m. Okay, returning to regular order here. Next item up, Kevin, can you do a 5-minute Chadwick Village ditch drainage environmental mitigation update?
Absolutely, I can. I guess real quickly, update at the prior meeting this evening. This item was before the Board of Works. As the Board of Works, one of the other items that are under their purview is they are the contracting authority for the city of Lebanon. And so they authorized me to enter into a contract for design services with Banning Engineering Company to execute what you see here before is a sketch that we put together for an RFP that went out for engineering companies to quote to. So this would be to rebuild the north part of the Chadwick ditch, the green area there, so that it properly drains. It would be to fill in the blue area there and drain all those rear yards to a newly reestablished and mitigated stream bank, a natural looking stream bank that would be constructed and meander across that field. So we will get that under contract for design, and the design is not overly complex, but the permitting, because it involves the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, IDEM, and DNR, will probably take the better part of a year. So next spring, we will come back to you and talk about a potential funding of this project, or that funding conversation could be rolled into our budget discussions this summer and fall as we get to that point. So that's all the update I have for you tonight. Just wanted to give you that brief discussion.
Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, those are three agencies that are always super fun to work with. I do have a question, Kevin. Once it's, let's say fast forward the future, we've completed the project, we've made it, it works great because everybody in Chadwick's super happy. Is there any chance that the county surveyor would take over the green section of that from a county legal drain standpoint?
The green section, yes, possibly.
Okay.
Yeah, to back up here, the green section in the north end of Chadwick, that's a possibility. We could talk to the surveyor's office about that and under what conditions they would need to see, because there are other legal drains that outlet into that area. Not other legal drains, but other city municipal storm sewer systems that would outlet into that area. The pink line, the magenta line, probably no chance.
Right.
But the green line could be a possibility.
Because that ditch there running north and south, that is currently a county legal drain, correct now?
Correct. Yes. The ditch along the east side over here that parallels Travis Drive, that is 100% a county regulated ditch.
It just didn't make the turn.
It didn't make the turn.
Okay. Any questions on that from council? I'm sorry if anybody was watching our meeting just for that 2-minute update, but there we are. So we'll start. So again, we're under contract now, Board of Works. So we'll start the process and work through the permitting and design. And thank you. We'll get there eventually. So, okay. Also, so item C, that was additional appropriation request. That was not noticed properly. So we'll in time for this meeting. So it'll be on 4/28. So the next item up will be Resolution 2025-08. This is additional appropriation concerning a generator at Station 12. Tanya, you mind reading that for us? I think we talked about it last time, but then we weren't noticed properly. But Kevin, you get 2 minutes to remind us.
Real simple. It's additional appropriation to fund the replacement of a generator at Station 12. Generators at the end of its useful life. generator has the quotes that were received. I want to say it's about $35,000. The additional appropriation is for 40, just because we don't know if there'll be any additional supplemental electrical systems in the building that may need to be updated as we replace the generator equipment.
That was installed back when Station 12 was built, which was 2000. Yeah.
It's the
2001-ish,
original. It's the
right?
original gen set.
Yeah. So, Tanya, mind reading it for us?
Sure. This is a resolution of the Common Council for the City of Lebanon for an additional appropriation, whereas the City of Lebanon, a duly formed municipal corporation, it is the duty and responsibility of the council to maintain physical integrity of the finances of the city. At times, it becomes necessary to appropriate additional funds. It has been determined that it is now necessary to appropriate more money than was originally appropriated in the annual budget. All of the appropriations require a public hearing, of which council has served proper notice. This is Resolution 2025-08 for LFD Station 12 generator, and it'll come from the Lit Fund 2240, not the general fund, for $40,000.
Thank you, Tanya. This time then, I'll open the public hearing on Resolution 2025-08. If you need public comment, please come forward. State your name for the record and keep comments to 3 minutes if possible. Thumbs up from Deputy Chief Young. Okay. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing on Resolution 2025-08. Any further discussion, comments from council?
Make a motion, we approve resolution 2025.
Mike thinks we need a generator. Motion, second from Sandra. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. Text Chief Batts for me. Deputy Chief, thank you, sir. All right, that concludes what I have for new business. Anything from council? Okay. I was going to say, Mike, when's the pancake supper for 2026? No? Okay.
Pancake supper. Great.
Very good. I'm sure it was all of our plugging we did here that made it put it over the top. Move that. I would entertain. Oh, yeah, sorry. I'll bring that up. Sorry. I had one more thing. Judge Cruz, we've been kind of having some discussions about how we have our infractions more or less for the court. And in the past, a lot of our ordinances have essentially arranged $25 to $500. He's very uncomfortable with that. Fairly so, right? And so I think, and maybe that was done at a time where they just didn't know how inflation would impact, or they wanted to give the judge flexibility to say, hey, you've been a really bad person and you've been really, if you're not too much doing fireworks, I'm going to give you a harsh penalty. I don't know. But I think he wanted a little more clarification, especially certainly from our more common violations, kind of more of a stricter fee schedule. So I really just want to kind of bring that to your attention, see if the council's open to something like that. I mean, Tanya, thoughts?
Yeah, and that's how they all read. I mean, everything, all the penalties read either 10 to 1,000. They read 25 to 500. There's no way he can. Can you talk?
For Indiana or surrounding communities, is there like a standard that we could?
We absolutely could do that. And that's something you guys are, it would just require us to legislative action to set those, right? So we just didn't want to spend a lot of time doing that unless you guys are saying, yeah, it probably does make some sense. We need to put some framework like, these types, it's, 25, 50, 100, or whatever we decide, right? But
Yeah, they should be exact.
get a little more clarification for the judge going forward. You guys okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll
We ask Alex to do that,
Yeah.
Judge Cruz.
I have a question.
let Tanya finish real quick. Keith, go ahead. Sorry.
And he said that was up to us, so.
Yeah, he's kind of deferring to us, but I think as long as you guys are okay with it, we'll kind of start getting some time committed to that. So good, Keith, sorry.
The question I have is, if we have people, and I'm sure we have, that violate the rules more than once in a year, well, that everyone in the same year should be doubled whatever it is the first time.
I think that's a fair statement. I think we can write that in the ordinance, right? We can say, hey, this,
Now, I'd be
if,
happy, whatever it is, the second one in the same year is double that.
we can have
Third
a,
one is double of that one, that's 4 times.
We can have an escalator in there that, if it happens within a 12 calendar
So
month.
how do we keep track of that?
Court records?
I think
Okay,
the
I mean,
court-
I think, no,
nothing's gonna,
I would think the court would have, they'd have that information, that's automatic. We
Yeah.
wouldn't have to do anything.
okay,
Seriously.
I'm just
Our
like, are we,
permitted code enforcement system actually keeps track of all actions taken on a
Okay.
property. Everything from a fence permit to a shed to a
okay.
weed and grass violation.
I
I mean,
just
not beyond like about 8 years ago, but into the future, we'll be
Okay.
keeping track of all
so
that.
I think we'll have, whatever the court system we have, we'll be able to see
Okay.
case history, kind of like you can on my case, right? You can see
Sure.
everyone's, like, hey, you got, 11 months ago, you got hit a golf cart violation again last time too. So, yeah.
Good. I just wanted to make sure we didn't need to
All right.
keep a spreadsheet on every person.
Keith wants a same-year escalator. Everything else? Everybody's good?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Now that concludes what I have for new business. Move on to the claims. What is the motion concerning the claims?
I make a motion, we pay the claims.
Motion to pay the claims from John, second from Mike. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, claims are approved. Any announcements or discussion?
No.
Okay. We entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Motion adjourned from John. Is there a second? Second from Sandra. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, our next city council meeting will be April 28th at 7:15 PM. We are adjourned.
That's the sign.